Every life is a story, every moment a chapter. Here on Slow English Stories, we pause to listen.
In a small village there lived two men. The fields were green. The houses stood close together. Both men were named Claus. To tell them apart, the villagers had a simple system.
One Claus owned 4 strong horses, so he was called Big Claus. The other man owned only 1 horse, a gentle brown animal with kind eyes, and he was called Little Claus.
This was not just a name. It was the story of their lives. Big Claus's world was wide and easy. His 4 horses could plow his large fields quickly. He always had enough grain to sell at the market.
Little Claus's world was much smaller. His 1 horse was his only treasure. It was his partner in the hard work of farming. The arrangement between them was simple, but it was not fair.
From Monday to Saturday, Little Claus had to work for Big Claus. He would take his 1 horse to Big Claus's farm. He helped plow the big man's endless fields.
In return for 6 days of labor, Big Claus would lend his 4 horses to Little Claus. But only for 1 day, Sunday. Oh, but that 1 day. It felt like a lifetime of happiness to Little Claus.
On Sunday mornings, the sun always seemed to shine brighter. The bells from the little village church would ring. Their sound floated over the fields like a happy song.
Little Claus would stand in his field. He held the reins of 5 horses. His 1 brown horse stood proudly. It stood next to the 4 powerful horses of Big Claus. On this one day, they were all his.
Well-dressed villagers walked past. They were on their way to church. They held their prayer books. They would stop and stare. They saw Little Claus, a man with almost nothing, standing behind a team of 5 beautiful horses.
A feeling of pride would swell in Little Claus's chest. It was so big and warm. It felt like the sun itself was inside him. He would crack his whip in the air, snap, and he would shout with a voice full of joy, "Get up, all my horses."
One Sunday, Big Claus heard him. He was walking back from his fields. His face grew dark like a storm cloud. "You must not say that, Little Claus," he said. His voice was low and hard. "You know only one of those horses is yours."
Little Claus felt his face grow hot with shame. "Yes, you are right," he said quietly. "I will not say it again." But pride is a difficult thing to control.
Soon, another group of villagers came by. They were smiling and waving. The sight of their friendly faces and the feeling of the 5 strong horses was too much for Little Claus. He forgot his promise.
He cracked his whip again. Snap! His happy shout echoed across the field. "Get up, all my horses." "I warned you," Big Claus growled. He walked over, his face red with anger.
"If you say that one more time, I will hit your horse on the head so hard, it will fall down dead, and that will be the end of him."
Little Claus's heart pounded with fear. He loved his horse more than anything. It was not just an animal to him. It was his friend. "I promise," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I will never say it again."
But the sun was so warm. The church bells sounded so sweet. And the world felt so full of possibility. When the next family passed, a little girl pointed at the 5 horses with wide, admiring eyes. Little Claus's heart simply overflowed.
It was a feeling bigger than his fear. He raised his whip. The word burst out of him, loud and clear and full of joy. "Get up, all my horses."
"I will get up your horse for you," Big Claus roared. He grabbed a heavy wooden mallet. He walked straight to Little Claus's gentle brown horse. He raised the mallet high.
He brought it down with a terrible thud. The horse fell to the ground without a sound. It did not move again. For a long moment, there was only silence.
The church bells continued to ring in the distance. But now their happy sound felt like a cruel joke. Little Claus fell to his knees beside his friend. Tears streamed down his face, silent and hot.
"Oh," he cried, his voice a broken whisper. "Now I have no horse at all. Now I have nothing." Big Claus just grunted and walked away. He left Little Claus alone with his terrible sadness.
After his tears were gone, a cold emptiness remained. Little Claus knew he could not leave his friend in the field. With a heavy heart, he took out his knife. He carefully removed the horse's skin.
He carried the hide home. He hung it in the wind to dry. It was a sad reminder of his lost friend. But it was all he had left.
When the hide was dry and stiff, he folded it carefully. He put it into a large sack. He put the sack over his shoulder. He began the long walk to the next town, hoping to sell it.
The journey was long. It took him through a great, dark forest. As the sun began to set, the sky turned purple. The wind began to howl through the trees. And a terrible storm broke.
Rain fell in cold, hard sheets. Flashes of lightning lit up the forest. It made the trees look like twisted monsters. Little Claus was completely lost.
Shivering and soaked, he saw a faint light. He stumbled towards it. He found a large farmhouse. The wooden shutters on the windows were closed. But a warm yellow light escaped through a crack.
"Perhaps they will let me stay the night," he thought. He knocked on the heavy wooden door. A woman opened the door just a little. She looked at his wet clothes with unkind eyes.
"My husband is not home," she said sharply. "And I do not let strangers in." She closed the door. The sound of the bolt sliding shut was loud and final.
Little Claus sighed. He saw a small shed next to the house. It had a low thatched roof. Well, he thought, it is better than nothing. He climbed onto the roof of the shed, out of the rain.
As he lay down, he noticed something. He could see into the farmhouse. He looked through the crack at the top of the shutters.
Inside, the room was warm and bright. A long table was covered with a beautiful feast. Roasted meat, a large baked fish, and bottles of red wine.
But it was not the farmer's wife eating this meal. She was sitting with another man. It was the village sexton. Little Claus knew the farmer hated sextons. He hated them more than anything in the world.
Suddenly they both froze. The sound of a horse came from the road. It was the farmer, returning home early. The wife's face went pale with fear.
"Quick," she whispered to the sexton. "Hide. My husband will be furious if he finds you here." She pushed the delicious food into the big oven. She hid the wine bottles in a corner.
The sexton looked terrified. He jumped into a large, empty wooden chest. It stood in the corner of the room. The wife quickly closed the heavy lid. It happened just as the farmer opened the door.
The farmer saw Little Claus standing by the shed. "Hello there," he called out. "What are you doing out in the storm?" "I got lost," said Little Claus. "Your wife said I could not stay."
"Nonsense," said the farmer. He was a kind man, when he was not angry about sextons. "Come inside. You must be cold and hungry." He led Little Claus into the warm room.
The farmer's wife smiled a nervous smile. "Welcome," she said. She put 2 bowls on the table. She filled them with plain, gray porridge.
The farmer began to eat his porridge. But Little Claus could not eat. He could only think of the delicious roast meat and the fish hidden in the oven.
Under the table was his sack. It held the dry horsehide. He pushed his foot against the sack. The stiff, dry skin made a loud squeaking noise. Squeak.
"Quiet," said Little Claus, looking down at his sack. The farmer looked up from his porridge. "What was that noise?" he asked. "Oh, that was just the wizard I have in my sack," Little Claus said calmly.
"A wizard," the farmer said, his eyes wide. "What can he do?" "He can do many things," said Little Claus. He pushed his foot on the sack again. Squeak.
"Did you hear that? He says he is very angry. He is angry that we are eating plain porridge, when he has just used his magic to fill the oven with a wonderful feast."
A feast? The farmer jumped up and ran to the oven. He opened the door, and his mouth fell open. Inside was the roasted meat, the fish, and many other delicious things.
His wife stood silently. Her face was as white as a sheet. The farmer, however, believed it was magic. He brought all the food to the table. "This is wonderful," he cried. "Your wizard is amazing."
They ate the delicious food. The farmer was very happy. After a while, Little Claus pushed his sack again. Squeak. "What does he say now?" asked the farmer.
"He says," Little Claus replied, "that he has also conjured 3 bottles of the finest wine. They are standing in the corner, over there." The wife had no choice but to bring out the wine.
The farmer drank and became very merry. "I must have this wizard," he said. Can he also conjure up the devil?" Oh, yes, said Little Claus. My wizard can do anything I ask.
He pushed the sack. Squeak. He says yes. But the devil is very ugly. You might not want to see him. I am not afraid, the farmer declared. What does he look like?
Well, said Little Claus, thinking quickly. He will look exactly like a sexton. A sexton, the farmer roared. His face turned dark. I cannot stand the sight of a sexton.
But if I know it is really the devil, I suppose it will be all right. Just as long as he does not come too close. My wizard says, Little Claus announced, that the devil is hiding in that big chest in the corner.
The farmer crept over to the chest. He slowly, carefully lifted the lid just a tiny bit. He peeked inside. Ack, he screamed, jumping back. I saw him. He looks just like our village sexton.
The farmer needed another drink of wine after that. He sat at the table for a long time, thinking. Finally, he said, You must sell me your wizard. I will give you a whole bushel of money for him.
A bushel was a very large basket, and a bushel of money was a fortune. I cannot, said Little Claus. Think of all the wonderful things he can do for me. Please, the farmer begged. I will give you the money, full to the top.
Finally, Little Claus agreed. All right, he said, because you have been so kind to me tonight. You can have the wizard for a bushel of money. But you must take that chest away with you, too. I will not have it in my house for another minute.
So Little Claus gave the farmer the sack. The sack with the old horsehide inside. In return, he received a large bushel basket. It was filled to the top with money. The farmer even gave him a wheelbarrow.
Little Claus pushed the wheelbarrow down the dark road. When he came to a deep river with a bridge, he stopped. He said in a loud voice, as if talking to himself, This chest is so heavy. I think I will just throw it into the river.
A muffled voice came from inside the chest. No, please don't. It was the sexton. Let me out, and I will give you a bushel of money.
Little Claus smiled. He opened the chest. The terrified sexton climbed out. The sexton ran back to the village. He returned with another bushel of money.
Now Little Claus had 2 bushels of money. He went home a very rich man. When Big Claus saw him, he was amazed. Where did you get all that money? He asked. His eyes were wide with greed.
Oh, said Little Claus. I got it for my horse's skin. I sold it last night. Big Claus could not believe it. He ran home, took a big axe, and killed all 4 of his horses.
He skinned them. He put their hides in his cart. He drove to the town and shouted, Skins! Who wants to buy horse skins? A bushel of money for each one.
The people in the town thought he was crazy. They laughed at him. Then, when he kept shouting, they became angry. They beat him and sent him away.
A few days later, Little Claus's grandmother died. She had been a cross old woman. She was not very kind to him, but he was sad that she was gone.
That night, he put her body in his own bed. In the middle of the night, the door creaked open. It was Big Claus holding his axe. He thought Little Claus was sleeping in the bed.
He crept over. With a mighty swing, he brought the axe down on the figure under the blankets. Then he ran out into the night. He thought he had finally gotten his revenge.
The next morning, Little Claus found his grandmother. She had a terrible wound on her head. He was shocked. But then an idea came to him.
He dressed his grandmother in her finest Sunday clothes. He put her in a cart next to him. He propped her up so she looked like she was sleeping. He drove to the biggest inn in the next town.
He left his grandmother in the cart. He went inside the inn. "Please," he said to the innkeeper, "could you take a glass of mead out to my grandmother? She is old and cannot hear well, so you must shout at her."
The innkeeper took the mead outside. "Here is your drink, old woman," he shouted. The grandmother did not move. "Can you hear me?" he yelled louder. She did not answer.
The innkeeper became very angry. He thought she was being rude. He shouted one more time. When she still did not move, he threw the glass of mead at her face.
Because she was propped up so stiffly, the old woman fell backwards out of the cart. She fell onto the ground. Little Claus ran out of the inn, shouting, "You have killed my grandmother. Look what you have done."
He showed the innkeeper the wound on her head. The wound from Big Claus's axe. The innkeeper was terrified. "I am so sorry," he cried. "It was an accident. I will give you a bushel of money."
Little Claus agreed. He returned home with another bushel of money. When Big Claus saw him, he was completely shocked. "But I killed you," he stammered.
"No," said Little Claus. "You killed my grandmother, and I just sold her to the innkeeper for a bushel of money." Greed once again filled Big Claus's heart.
He ran home, found his own grandmother, and killed her with his axe. He took her body to the town chemist. "Would you like to buy a dead body?" he asked.
The chemist was horrified. "You are a terrible man," he shouted. "This is a crime." He called for the guards, and Big Claus ran away in terror.
Now, Big Claus was filled with a rage that was black and total. He went to Little Claus's house. He grabbed him and put him in a big sack. He tied the top tightly.
"I am going to throw you in the river," he said. "This time, there will be no mistake." He walked towards the river. On the way, he passed the village church. He decided to go in and say a prayer.
He left the sack on the side of the road. Little Claus twisted and turned in the sack. "Oh, I am so young to die," he cried out. "Soon I will be in heaven."
Just then, an old shepherd came down the road. He had a huge flock of beautiful white cattle. The shepherd was very old, with a long white beard. He heard Little Claus's voice.
"And I am so old," the shepherd sighed. "And I still cannot get into heaven. If you get in this sack, you'll go straight to heaven. Little Claus shouted from inside. It is a magic sack.
The old shepherd's face lit up. That sounds like a wonderful trade, he said. He untied the sack, and Little Claus climbed out. The old shepherd climbed in. Little Claus tied it up again.
Then Little Claus walked away. He took the entire flock of cattle with him. A little while later, Big Claus came out of the church. He picked up the sack. It felt just as heavy as before.
He carried it to the deepest part of the river. With a great heave, he threw it into the cold, dark water. There, he said, wiping his hands. Now he will not trick me again.
As he walked home, he saw a man. The man was coming towards him. He had a huge flock of cattle. As the man got closer, Big Claus's eyes grew wide. It was Little Claus.
How is this possible? Big Claus gasped. Where did you get all these animals? Little Claus smiled. Oh, these are sea cattle, he said.
When you threw me in the river, I sank to the bottom. It is beautiful down there. The sea people live there, and they are very kind. They gave me these cattle as a gift.
Big Claus stared at the cattle. His mind was filled with greed. Could I get some sea cattle too? He asked. Of course, said Little Claus. I can help you.
Just get into a sack, and I will throw you in. But you are heavier than me. So, we should put a large stone in with you, just to make sure you get to the bottom quickly.
Yes, that is a good idea, said Big Claus. He was so excited he could barely stand still. He climbed into a large sack. Little Claus found a heavy stone and put it in with him.
He tied the top of the sack very tightly. Then he carried it to the bridge. With a great heave, he threw it into the deepest part of the river. There was a big splash and then silence.
Big Claus sank straight to the bottom, and he never came up again. Little Claus went home with all the cattle. From that day on, he was no longer Little Claus. He was just Claus, the man who learned that a quick mind can be the greatest treasure of all.